silver's been rock hard in here, and now the world knows that J.P. Morgan Chase is naked short.
Ain't got any.
Probably about 40 to 50% of the entire net short position, and Hong Kong Shanghai Bank probably is in for about 25. So of all the shorts, they're probably controlling 60 to 70%, somewhere in there, which is concentration, which is illegal, and the Commodity Futures Trading Corporation refuses to do anything about it because that position belongs to the United States government. That's why. You have no regulation, you have no control, you have a corporatist fascist government, and that's what they're doing. They are systematically shorting the producing gold shares. They usually don't fool around too much with the juniors or the exploration stocks because the floats are so thin on many of them. And I don't care what they do. You can't beat the market. The market's going to do what the market's going to do. And there's not enough money in the world to stop it. And yes, we've been delayed for some years, but it's coming to an end. And we are going to win, and gold and silver are going to reflect their nominal values at much, much higher levels. The stocks are extremely suppressed. Companies like Agnico Eagle, Goldcorp, Silver Standard, Minefinders, terrific companies, but not much shares outstanding. Management did a magnificent job putting the companies together. And I'll just take one. Agnico Eagle sells for $60. Company's been around since the late 1950s. The first president is now deceased. Paul Penner, I knew him very well. As a broker, I recommended the stock in 1965. President Sean Boyd, I've known him for 25 years. This stock at $60 right now should be selling at least at $150. That's what our government has done to that company, and every one of them. But it will rise above it. But the point is, if you want to do something about your government manipulating markets, kick them all out in November, except for Ron Paul. Get them out.
And absolutely, that's what there is to do. I went to a pre-Tea Party meeting earlier this week and somehow became the center of attention at this thing, but one of the comments that was asked of me is, what do we need to do? And I said, you start in this local area by getting rid of John McCain. You start in this local area by, other than that, getting rid of every incumbent that is here in your districts. And then you go and you work with the state legislatures to have them feel more emboldened to assert states' rights. You sit outside your congressman and indeed your senator's office and you demand, in numbers, if you can spool up the numbers, that they allow the audit to Fed bill to come out of committee over there in the Senate and show up as a law. There are a lot of things that we must do. This is no longer something you should do. This is a must. Because as Bob says, the alternative is slavery. And if you're willing to live in slavery, that's fine. But you better ask whether you want your kids and your grandchildren to live in it or not. You know, I won't get on that soapbox right now. You all know what I think about that, those of you who listen to us on a regular basis. Bob, I know we have just about a minute or so left, and then you have to go. Is there anything we need to be on the lookout for in the next week?
Well, they're running the market higher, and it's rigged. There's no question. And where they want to take it to, I don't know. But once they take it to where it's going down. And as Richard Russell said a couple of weeks ago, this market should be already down. And he's calling for 1,000 on the Dow. And he's had the most successful publication in the history of newsletters except for Harry Schultz. And he's been right and right and right. And he says the United States government is rigging the market, and they're not going to get away with it because the market will always win. And Joe Granville says the same thing.
Yeah, it's definitely It's definitely something that's up there, and at some point in time, it's going to take some little event somewhere that's going to start the collapse, and then it's all going to come down. But they're holding it up right now because it's the only thing that they can really put their fingers on that helps reinforce the management of perception economics that says, oh, the economy's in recovery. Look, the stock market just went over 11,000. And all is good and all is well. And I just look at those numbers and I get dizzy looking at them. But, and it's hard because you hear this stuff day in and day out. And as I said earlier in the show, just about the time you think that, it can't go any higher and it's got a bubble, they pull another one out of their hat and up it goes. And the cheerleaders at CNBC get back on the bandwagon and it's like nothing ever happened. And all I can say is, the trip down the Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole continues, and we're so fortunate to have a man like Bob Chapman who helps us sort it all out. Bob, we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for listening, and take good care of yourself in regards to Judy.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for listening. Bye-bye.
I want you all to welcome Mr. Bob Chapman to the show, and I personally want to welcome Mr. Bob Chapman and his beautiful wife on the side. Judy is there. She may have the golf club in the hand ready to grab a hold of Bob and go out to play a round of golf. So with that said, Bob, I know you've got some things you'd like to talk about out there and, give us a first-hand events.
Well, it hasn't been too poppin' lately. This past week, we kind of hang over from the problems in Greece, and the Europeans have said, along with the IMF, that they're going to help them with $41 billion in loans under certain circumstances. And also, a professor at Tübingen University, which is north of Kassel in north-central Germany, he says that what they're doing is illegal and they're going to bring a lawsuit. So it gets more interesting every day. And so who knows where that's going to go and who knows how long it's going to take for that kind of a lawsuit to get into a court. The damage is there, and Greece has had problems for a long time, and many others do. As I said last week, there's 19 major countries that are on the edge, and of course probably number one is Iceland, and now they got a volcano erupting there, and it's putting a lot of dust and soot and ashes into the air. And I just got a report from England. The airports are closed in several of the countries because there's some element in this cloud that's coming from the volcano that will melt the engines of planes, which certainly isn't very good. And so, the world is not free of problems. The markets are still being manipulated, unfortunately, and they have taken the Dow higher, and I don't think it's going to stay there a long time, but they've taken it higher. And I think on the way down, it's going to be pretty bumpy. Gold has been holding its own, along with silver, and our government is in there trying to reduce the value of those two metals. And so that's what's going on in that market, although they're holding up well. I should bring to the attention of people that within the Medical Reform Act, two things of note, and I don't know whether I talked about this last week or not, but what amounts to capital controls is included in that piece of legislation. And what in essence it says is, if you have an account outside the United States with a bank that has offices or branches in the United States, that bank has to report to the U.S. government that they in fact have an account for you, and that they are supposed to disclose everything about the account. And if the bank refuses to do so, or the individual, then they must close the account. And of course that's not very good legislation. First of all, it's not necessary. Second of all you have to do, if Bank A has a branch in the United States and you're living, say, in San Jose, Costa Rica,